So I just wanted to give you a bit of background really around Ely College. So not spend too long on it, but a little bit. So we're quite an interesting college really, I guess. We've had quite a lot of change. We're 11 to 19, so we've got a sixth form that's thriving. And we've grown enormously. So we were in 2016 when what was CMAT, now Meridian Trust, took us over. We were about 1,000 students. That was including our sixth form. We're now close to 1,600. And that's, it's a huge amount of growth in quite a sort of short period of time, really. We went into special measures, actually, which is why we ended up with Meridian. And the picture on the right, I particularly like, because that was the press picture that went out when we got good with outstanding, which was quite nice and felt like a long time arriving. Our catchment in terms of students is mainly sort of historically been mainly rural or farming, but increasingly and more so now, I think the dominant sort of part of our catchment really is these sort of commuting and more affluent parents who are commuting to London or Cambridge, and that's very much changed sort of the students we're working with and potentially their needs. We're the largest and only secondary in Ely City. There's two smaller secondaries on the outskirts in some of the villages, but they are much smaller and neither have post-16 provision. So we are by far the dominant one in the city. In 2016, just to give you a bit of an idea, I was doing transition at that point, and we were targeted to try and get 120 students that year, applications for the year sixes. We managed to get 150. This year we've had over 400, and we're now massively oversubscribed. So I think it's just useful for you to have a little bit of background on the school and where Oracy sort of perhaps fits in for us. So I guess the question was sort of why Oracy, why start to focus on that, and perhaps the timing as well, like why now? So it's always been something I've had a bit of a passion for. I'm teaching and learning lead here and have been since 2016. I've wanted to get involved with Voice 21 for quite some time and focus on that. So that's always been sitting there in the background. And actually, sometimes it is the timing. We were at school trying to move to a better place, and that was the priority. And actually, when we had a bit of room to breathe, I was able to kind of go back to that passion and look at what we could do. Recognition of student progression and opportunities for those with strong Oracy skills. What I kind of mean for that is meaning that we're recognising some of those different things that students are doing. That I used to have students come and bump into me around Ely wanting to tell me about how successful they've been since school, and they didn't do particularly well necessarily academically, but they had strong Oracy skills. They were good talkers. They were able to sort of talk their way out of a situation, present themselves really well. And it was really interesting to see how well they had progressed and how confident they were. And just starting to look at how we can recognise and credit that skill as much as, or at least a little bit more than we do, but certainly a bit more towards like we do with the academic. Pandemic, so in terms of timing, that was a situation where less Oracy opportunities for students, certainly during the lockdowns, but I think changes in society generally. I mean, students are communicating less by speaking in their social lives. It's much more through online, it's much more through messaging, and actually that conversation, communication, talking to people is less a part of what they do in their daily lives. So that felt like it was time that it had a higher place in what we deliver in school. I've also put pandemic on in terms of money availability. So I have a budget for staff CPD. Pre-pandemic, that would have been, a day, perhaps out, maybe 300-400 quid for tickets, train tickets, cover, very expensive. So you're quite limited in having the money to kind of put towards something like this. And in the pandemic, all of that stopped, but the budget was still there. So at the end of that time, I had quite a lot sort of left that I wouldn't normally have had, which gave me the opportunity to sign up for 3 years in one go rather than perhaps just the one at a time as well, which was good. It really put that commitment in the sand, if you will, and where we were going and what we wanted to focus on. And we were in a more stable position. So, Ofsted had been and gone, and we were now in a place where we could perhaps move on to other things. So why Voice 21? I'd followed them with interest for a while, actually. They kind of popped up in lots of places I went, different conferences. I'd read their book. If you haven't actually had a look at their book, this is the picture of it on the right. It's well worth a read, and it really puts across why Oracy matters and really makes you feel that it's something you need to address sooner rather than later. And I enjoyed that very much as a read, and it spoke to me quite a bit. Our links with Whole Education and Voice 21 have had a lot of links with them as well. that felt like a bit of a natural fit. I'd been able to speak to some of them on different occasions about what the work they were doing and sort of get an idea of how it was developing with the schools they were working with. And the sheer amount of resources and the quality of training they offer is notable. You know, it really stood out, and that's why we decided to go with them.